I feel really good that the Lord has brought us to the book of Exodus. We did have a lot of enjoyment in the first book of the Bible. Now I believe the enjoyment in the second book will be sweeter and sweeter. Just we need a word as a kind of introduction. First of all, I would say this. What I'm going to say tonight, a few points, they are not printed on the page. Number one, the divine revelation in the Bible is altogether progressive. God didn't speak once for all. From Genesis to Revelation, from the beginning to the end of the Bible, we know we have 66 books. And these books were written in a period, of 1,600 years. The first 5 books were written is about 1,500 years before Christ, written by Moses. And the last few books of the New Testament were written about 60 to 90 years after Christ. So you could see from the first book to the last book, the writing of the Bible was there within 1,600 years, 1,600 years. God took that long period to speak to people progressively. God didn't speak once for all. So when we come to the Bible, we have to realize that with so many books, the Bible is going on progressively. So we should read and study and even search the Bible in a progressive way. Don't think after we have 120 messages on Genesis, that'd be wonderful. That is wonderful, but not completed yet. You see, wonderful, but not sufficient. Wonderful, but not completed. If you read Colossians, we will get on by the summertime. This coming summer, we will get on Colossians for the 10-day training. And probably if we couldn't get 30 messages from that 4 chapters, we may get on Galatians. I'm not too sure. Anyhow, it is sure, the Lord so leads, we will get on Colossians. In Colossians, we will see Paul told us he was commissioned to complete the Word of God. By that time, God's revelation in the writings, that means in the scriptures, was not completed yet. So there was the need that Paul had to be burdened to speak continually in order to complete the Word of God. The real completion, the ultimate completion of the revelation is Revelation, the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation is the completion of God's divine revelation. I tell you, from that time onward, from the end of the book of Revelation, the Bible declares no one can speak anymore. No one should should take away anything from the divine revelation. Neither anyone should add something. You see, after the book of Revelation, no more addition, of God's progressive revelation. It began with Genesis and it consummated with Revelation. So today we have to study the whole Bible book after book. The Lord did have a good beginning with us, right? That is, we have finished the book of Genesis. Now we come to the second book. I am not joking, but I'd like to speak a little bit and encourage you. You know, in the Bible, number one is always inferior to number two. And number two is always superior to number one. You know, Adam was number one and Christ was number two. Whom do you like? Don't say after the bridge, I just burned the bridge. Don't think I just burned Genesis. Anyhow, I like to bring your thought into the second book. Now, generally speaking, Exodus continues Genesis, right? In writing, it is so. And in history, historically speaking, it is also so. You see, you have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob going before, right? Then you have the sons with the children of Jacob, right? You have these descendants of Jacob. Surely, according to history, these are the continuations of Jacob. So nearly all the Bible teachers do say what is revealed here is a continuation of Genesis. It is right, but listen to this. Experientially, you have to know what is portrayed in the second book is not something after the experience of those three persons, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. In other words, according to the spiritual experience, what is portrayed in Exodus is not something as a continuation in experience of the three foregoing persons. It doesn't mean, you know, after Abraham, you have Isaac. After Isaac, you have Jacob. Even in the study of Genesis, we have pointed out these three persons are just three sections of one person. Their experiences are just three sections of one believer's experience. Now, I would say this. Spiritual experience does not only have sections, as portrayed by the three persons, Abraham section, then Isaac section, and then Jacob section. Tonight, I do believe we have a lot of things to cover as a kind of introductory word, so I don't like to bother you. If I would check with you, Abraham represents what section of your experience, and Isaac, what section, then Jacob, what section. I maybe just bother Brother Rob. You just tell us in a brief way. Abraham represents what section, and Isaac and Jacob, you know. Right. Yeah, just tell us briefly.
Abraham would represent the section on faith, and Isaac would represent the section on what we receive in Christ, and Jacob would represent the section on the transformation work.
It's not bad. It's okay. Now, three sections. The spiritual experience does not only have the sections, listen, but also has the sides. Side, the aspects. You see, look at my physical body. You have the section of the head, right? Then you have the section from the shoulder to the side. Then you have the section from the side to the toes. 3 sections, right? Not only so, you have also the front side and then the back side, right? When I'm standing this way, you see my front. Now I like to, you see my back. It's another thing. Two sides, right? In Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, we see the 3 sections. And the picture there was more than clear, right? And such a clear picture you could never find in the New Testament. Many Christians, all Christians appreciate the New Testament much better than the Old. And I was the same, not an exception, right? But actually, after you get into it, I do believe we will love the Old Testament more. If not more, at least the same. At least the same. I love the Old Testament because, especially with an old man and the eyes are so easy to be tired, I don't like to read so many words in small tabs. I like to look at the picture. Right? I like to look at the picture. I tell you, the Old Testament, the whole Old Testament is a picture book. We'll come back to this later. Anyhow, in the Old Testament, firstly, you have a clear view of the 3 basic sections of the spiritual experience. But what is portrayed there is just on one side. It's just along one line. You see? You know why there are 4 Gospels, 4 biographies concerning the Lord Jesus. Not 4 sections, but 4 sides. Right? 4 sides. Just like today, people making a statue for any person, they have to take photos on the front and on the back, on the right, and on the side, left. 4 sides. I tell you, I don't say that our spiritual experience does have 4 sides. I don't see that. I couldn't see that clearly, but according to my experience and according to my study of the Bible, I do fully realize that the spiritual experience does have 2 sides. One is portrayed by the line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob plus Joseph. That is one side on that line. Now, the second book comes to what? Another side. The other side. On another line. So, yes, in writing, Exodus continues Genesis. In history, no doubt, the story in Exodus is just a kind of a continuation of that in Genesis, no doubt. But in spiritual experience, it is not in this way. In spiritual experience, it is that Genesis shows us the front, you may say, and Exodus shows us the back. You see, Genesis gives us one line, and Exodus gives us another line. So now we are on the second side and on the second line. Let me share with you. Yes, when we were on Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we felt that was complete. And I did my best to impress you. That was complete. But tonight, I'm going to tell you that was complete, yet still not completed. That was complete, but still not completed. Why? You just tell me, in Genesis, where you can see a clear picture concerning redemption. You just tell me where, how, and by what Abraham was redeemed. Right? In Abraham, we saw a clear picture of God's calling. Right? God's calling was portrayed clearly in the whole Bible. Even Acts 7 says, the God of glory appeared to our father Abraham. You see, Abraham got a complete call. Abraham was completely calling, and he was a typical example of a called one, right? And when he was called, where was he, young brothers? Where? Chaldees. And what was that? Babel, right? And he was in Babel. He was in Babel. Babel means what? Means rebel. Babel means rebel. Yeah? He was in a place of rebels. Abraham was in a place of rebels. He was among the rebels. When he was among the rebels, he was living there among the rebels. The God of glory appeared to him and rendered him a wonderful, excellent call. And he was called. And he was called, and then he left that land of idols, right? He left that. But could you find out any chapter or any verse in the story of Abraham concerning the redemption? No. Then you go to Isaac. No. Just no. No redemption there. Then you go to Jacob. My goodness, he is a supplanter, a heel holder. He is a deceiver, right? But how could such a supplanter, a deceiver, become God's people? And eventually got transformed into what? A prince of God, into an Israel. Was there a picture of God's redemption? No. No. Then where they were redeemed? Where? I tell you, they were redeemed in Exodus. So in Exodus, you have another side with another line. And this side is not the calling side, you see? And this side is the redeeming side, right? With Abraham, you have a clear picture of God's calling. But here in Exodus, you have, I would say, a more clear picture. A picture much more clear than that in Genesis concerning God's calling. Right? Now, in Exodus, you have a clear picture concerning what? God's redemption. Here you have a redeeming line. Right? A redeeming line. And you have to see another point. Yes, after Abraham was called, Abraham left his father's land. Right? And he followed the Lord. And he didn't know where to go, but step by step, the Lord's presence was his route map, right? He was walking just according to the Lord's presence. But I tell you, it's hard for you to find out through such a long journey, you know, from Chaldee to walk through a long journey and entered into Canaan, the good land. The book of Genesis never showed us by what way the Lord supported Abraham. by what way the Lord took care of Abraham. We can say generally, of course, the Lord took care of Abraham. The Lord was leading Abraham. The Lord afforded him with everything. You can say this in a general way, but you cannot see some specific instances showing how the Lord, took care of Abraham. But in the book of Exodus, my goodness, you could see from the very beginning the Lord took care of his redeemed people. When they were short of eating stuff, okay, the Lord gave them manna. When they were short of drink, the Lord gave them the living water. You see, in this book, you do not only have the Lord leading, but you have picture after picture portraying by what way and how the Lord took care of the daily need, you see, of his redeemed people, which you cannot see in the line recorded in Genesis. Am I right? I do believe after all that study with 120 messages on Genesis, including myself, we're all satisfied. I tell you, I used to tell people, we had so many life studies on Matthew, John, Romans, Ephesians, Hebrew, Revelation, 6 books in the New Testament. I tell you, I am not so happy with those 6 books as I am happy with Genesis. You know why? Because when we were on the study of Genesis, we were not limited by time. Okay, if we cannot finish this week, we still have next week. If not next week, we still have another next week. Sometimes I just put in a parenthesis and another parenthesis. But, 10-day training. Always I got limited, regardless what, Matthew or Ephesians or what, always 30 messages. 30 messages. John, 30 messages, and Matthew, 2 groups of 30 messages. Whether you have or you don't have, you have to fill out 30 messages. We were just limited there. We were just limited. So I'm not so happy. This morning I talked to Brother Ron Kangas concerning our publication. I was very unhappy about Ephesians chapter 5. I was happy with all the other chapters. But the weakest study is the one on chapter 5, Ephesians chapter 5. So, in last week conference, I indicated that I was waiting for another chance to give more message at chapter 5. Then this morning, Ron Kangas reminded me, because in 1973, we gave a series of good, strong messages on Ephesians chapter 5 and also on Ephesians chapter 2. On the new man, on the abolishing of the ordinances and so forth. It's about 40 messages. So I said, Ron, better do this. And Ron is going to collect all these messages and mingle with the Ephesian message. So Ephesian message will eventually probably 90 to 100 messages. We've been quite limited. So I was happy with Genesis. Yet, I must tell you, if we only have that one book in the whole Bible, we might be satisfied. But we will feel missing. You see? Feel missing. Now, what you feel missing in Genesis, here you can get the satisfaction. Here you can get it. Here you can get it. Have you never seen a page in Genesis that when Abraham was short of food, God rained the manna to him? Right? In Genesis, the most thing you can see is in Beersheba. There was a well, right, dug for Abraham. When we were there, 1977, we went down to Beersheba, and especially we went to the very spot that was the well of Abraham. Whether that was the real thing or not, I don't know, but everybody says. Yeah, well, anyhow, I tell you, what was given to Abraham, just a well. But, listen, to Israel, children of Israel, I tell you, in the wilderness, manna came. You see, the living water, yeah, through out of the cleft rock. And this more in detail, am I right? Even in the New Testament, you cannot find out such pictures. So I tell you tonight, my burden is just to impress you. Exodus is the best of the books. Don't concern for Leviticus. No, that's tomorrow's problem. Well, anyhow, today's favorite is Exodus. Exodus, really good. It's really good. Yes, the Lord was leading Abraham by his presence, but there you couldn't see the pillar. Right? But in Exodus, it's more solid, more more substantial. The leading of the Lord is not just a presence, a kind of abstract term. It's so abstract by the presence. Abraham was following the Lord's presence. What is the Lord's presence? It is abstract. But I tell you, the abstract presence of the Lord in Exodus becomes what? Becomes a pillar. You know what the pillar means? Strong, solid, to stand. The leading of the Lord to his people is a pillar. Not just a piece of cloth, like a carpet. No, but a pillar. In the day, the pillar of cloud, and in the night, a pillar of fire. Have you ever seen a fire pillar? A pillar of fire. It's more solid. I'm right. No more abstract. And the people's eyes could see. They could, this is the Lord leading. See? Where's the Lord? Well, there. Don't you see the pillar? So what you can never find in the leading the Lord gave Abraham, here you can find. You can see something solid. Don't you feel good? Now, do you love Genesis or Exodus? Once you taste Exodus, you will say, this is much sweeter. It's much sweeter. This is much better. Am I right? Well, could you find another illustration concerning the Lord's redemption so clear as the Passover? No, you can never. Even in the New Testament, you cannot find. The picture of the Passover, we wait till we get on chapter 12. I don't know when, maybe next spring. I don't know. But, yeah, we will get there. Yeah, no, not the coming summer, maybe next year. And now, when we get there, I tell you, you will see the beautiful picture of redemption. The cross is portrayed there, I was told, and if you read Exodus chapter 12, you can find a cross there. A cross there. When they killed the lamb, they killed this way. They cut this part, and they put the two hinds upon one piece of crushed wood. And then they put the two legs together upon a kind of standing wood. So there you have the picture of the cross. there. My full picture, which you cannot find even in the New Testament. And then the blood. Even in the New Testament, there is not such a picture, a vivid picture, showing us, the blood. My, how strong, how powerful, right? The blood of the Lamb of God is. Am I right? A clear picture. You see, whatever you could not see there in Genesis, you can see it here clearly in Exodus. One thing more. Yes, God did come to visit Abraham. And God ate with Abraham. God entered into his tent. But in Genesis, you don't have a clear vision, a clear revelation about God's dwelling place, the tabernacle. Am I right? You see, nothing is higher than this. The revelation of the pattern of God's dwelling place on this earth. And not only a revelation, but also there was a practical building up of such a dwelling place of God on this earth. Could you have anything solid like this? You cannot, right? God appeared to Abraham. God appeared to Isaac. God appeared to Jacob. God appeared to his chosen people again and again and again. But God never had a solid, substantial building in material among his people. This is not a small thing, right? You cannot see such a thing in Genesis. But here in Exodus, it is fully what? Revealed, and not only revealed, it's fully built, and not only built, it is fully recorded. You see, it's fully recorded. I say it is more solid, it's more substantial. I tell you, whatever you have here is much better than what we saw in Genesis. Not only so, something more. Don't forget, you have to see, whatever there in Genesis is individual. And whatever here in Exodus is corporate. Am I right? Abraham was called individually. As an individual, he was called. Right? Isaac was an individual. And Jacob was an individual. Eventually, he had 12 sons. But anyhow, except Joseph, as a kind of exception, all the other 11 didn't come to the standard. Right? They didn't come to the standard. Actually, what was the Israel there was an individual person. But I tell you, in the whole book of Exodus, it is no more individual. It's altogether a corporation. A corporate. The redemption is corporate. The leading is corporate. The revelation is corporate. The building up is corporate. Everything here is corporate. Of course, I have to say this, in our spiritual experiences, there are two sides, the individual side and the corporate side. But we must realize the corporate side is always higher, richer, and greater, and better than the individual side. I realize individual side is basic, no doubt. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, their experiences individually are all basic. We need that. But I tell you, the individual experience is just basic, but not the completion. You see, the completion of our experience is corporate. The individual, even today, the personal, individual experience, yes, is basic. It is needed. It is really needed. But the completion, the consummation, the ultimate consummation is not the individual experience, but the corporate. So in Genesis, you have the basic, but in Exodus, you have the ultimate, right? Of course, we need the basic, but we need the ultimate even the more. Okay. At the end of Genesis, you have an individual Israel. Individual Israel. In the book of Exodus, especially at the end, you have a corporate Israel. Even in chapter 14, you see, in chapter 14, verse 30 says, God delivered Israel out of the hand of Egypt. You see, there God called the whole nation, the whole people, Israel. Not Israelites, the Israel. You see, Israel, this name in Genesis is personal. You see, it's an individual person. But this name in Exodus refers to what? A corporate, collective people. It's not an individual people, not a personal person, but a collective people. We all have to say this. So after Genesis, in the Old Testament, many times, Israel means what? This title means what? Means a corporate people, a collective people. Now, in Exodus, you see, you didn't see individual salvation. You see, all the children of Israel is about 2 million. Why? Because you have over 600 fighters. 600,000 fighters. Say one fighter has a wife with a child, and 3 times of 600,000 is about 2 million. At least 2 million people, all the 2 million people got saved at the same time. They passed, God's judgment at the same time. Brother, if I ask you, when were you saved? Bob, you better say, brother, I was saved, brother, when you were saved. If you ask me, brother, when you were saved, I would say, brothers and sisters, I was saved when you all were saved. You see, on one side, we were saved respectively and individually and personally. But on the other side, I tell you, in the eyes of God, we were all saved together. And this thought is in Ephesians chapter 2. It says, God raised up together. And the together there doesn't modify with Christ, but modify our being raised up. God raised up us all together. In God's eyes, it doesn't mean one day God raised up Peter. Another day, God raised up Stephen. And then after a while, God raised up Paul. And then later on, after many centuries, God raised up Martin Luther. And then after another 500 years, God raised up dictator in the USA. No. In God's eyes, it doesn't mean that. In God's eyes, I tell you, whether you were born, whether you were not born, at that one day, at that one time, God raised up all together. I like to say this. If you do not misunderstand me, the doctrinal matter is not so easy. You can argue. Try to understand me, right? Don't misunderstand me. I tell you, this is not a kind of a doctrine, huh? This is just my talk. I tell you, we were not redeemed individually. We all were redeemed collectively. But in a good sense, we were called individually. Can you follow me? When The Apostle Paul was called. We were not called yet. Even when I was called 50 years ago, you were not born yet. You see? Concerning calling, God's calling, we may consider something individual. But I tell you, concerning God's redemption, we shouldn't consider. We shouldn't consider anything individual. We have to realize God's redemption is a corporate matter. One day, at the same time, God redeemed all of us. But anyhow, I do expect that you all can see the two sides. The two sides. Okay. The two sides are just like two lines. This is the line of Genesis. I put G there. And this is the line of Exodus. And I put E here, right? Yes, at the end, we do have what? An individual Israel. But we don't have God dwelling. We don't have God's habitation, right? But at the end of Exodus, we have a corporate Israel, right? And this corporate Israel equals what? Equals God's habitation, right? I do believe you all agree with me. By this you could see the two lines go together, right? Just like the front and the back go together, yeah? Go together, you see? Go together. But if you look at my back, you couldn't see much, right? Of course, you see something like here, something like here, huh? Something like here, then something like here, something like there. You just could see. What is here is nothing. You just can see something like this, right? Until I turn. My friend, here's a no, why? Yeah. You can see all things here. Oh, now he's, this is Brother Lee. Surely, look at his bag. It's hard for us to recognize, but look at his right away. We can, this is Brother Lee. Right? Well, you just look at the bag, you couldn't see the dwelling of God solidly, substantially on this earth. But you come to the second book, right? And you go to the end, I tell you, you could see Israel here is no more an individual. Loving the Lord, being one with the Lord. Not only that, no more that, but Israel here on the front becomes a corporate Israel. Right? And this corporate Israel just became God's dwelling place, became God's house. You see the point? God's house, God's habitation. Then what? Then let me say why I love Exodus now. Because regardless what's what, I tell you, in Genesis, you couldn't see God's glory in a substantial way, descending upon something among his people. But you can see this physically in Exodus. My, when you come to the last chapter of Exodus, chapter 40, when the tabernacle was erected, what happened? What happened? I tell you, the glory of God came down visibly. I'm right? Solidly and substantially. not only came down upon the tabernacle, but also filled the tabernacle. Could you see such a thing? Could you see such a thing in Genesis? You could never see such a thing. Right? Yes, in Genesis, we eventually saw an Israel there. But that Israel was individual. Am I right? Yes, he was God's dwelling place. No doubt. God was with him, with Israel. But the picture there is just like something not matured. You see, just a little bit, like a sprout. You see, not a big tree bearing the fruit, just a sprout. Right? You cannot see things so clearly. But at the end of the second book, my goodness, you have again the Israel. And this is what? This is the increased Israel. This is no more an individual Israel, but a corporate Israel composed with all the descendants of that one individual Israel. And this corporate Israel, no doubt, you can see the picture, is just increase, just enlargement, right? Just increase, the enlargement of that one individual Israel. So this is still Israel, but Israel enlarged. You see, not Israel limited in one person, but Israel enlarged in all his descendants. So all his descendants became Israel. And this Israel is corporate, and this Israel became the very solid, substantial dwelling place of God on this earth. I tell you, brothers, we need to see all these things. I say this is the way for us to study, to get into the Word of God. It takes not just to read the black and white, not just to read the letters. We sure need to open up ourselves to our God's light that we may see. You see, we may see something. This is why I feel very burdened to have such an introductory word to lay a good foundation that we will appreciate this book much more than the first one. Now, may I check with you? Have you got convinced? Have you got convinced that the second book is better, is higher, is richer, right? Even is greater than the first one? Actually, it is. No comparison, right? And the first line is just like this. The second line, I tell you, just like this. The second line, just like this. You see? You don't argue with me. If you argue, you don't have a case. You see? Let me check with you. Later on, I'll go on. You see? Here is Babel. Here is Babel, right? Here is Babel, and here is Egypt. Huh? Yeah. How many walked out of Babel? One. And how many walked out of 2 million? Right? That walked out of Babel was only one family. Actually, only a couple. Am I right? Just Abraham and his wife. Not even with a child. Just two, one male and a female. But I tell you here, over 2 million. So here one line, you need 2 million lines. I don't have the time to draw all the 2 million lines. Even the board doesn't give me the space to illustrate. 2 million times. If you count 2 persons there, and you count 2 million, at least 1 million times. There's no comparison. What would you say? So surely you have lost your case. You have to subdue it. You have to realize, young people, you have to realize Exodus is much better. It's much better. Am I right? Now, another thing. I just give you a comparison. You know, in the Bible, it illustrates our fall in different aspects. Firstly, in Genesis, the Bible illustrates that our fall is what? Falling into what? Into a rebellion, full of idols, Babel. You check with your background. I tell you, before you were saved, you were there in Babel. Babel is a place of rebels, a rebellious place, full of idols. That was Babel, or that is Babel. But this is just one aspect. In another aspect, we were also fallen into Egypt. Egypt is a place of fleshly enjoyment. And this fleshly enjoyment just brings us into a slavery, under bondage. Egypt in the Bible means what? Means the world is your fleshly enjoyment, which brings you into a bondage of slavery. I tell you, a fallen person before being saved was there. On the one hand, he was there in Babel. At the same time, he was also there in Egypt. In Babel, he was a rebel. He was in the rebellion. He was under the idols. In Egypt, he was in the world. He was in the worldly enjoyment. He was in the worldly refreshment. He was in the worldly sports. He was in the worldly entertainment. He was in the worldly enjoyment for his flesh. Right? For the satisfaction of the natural man. He was there. At the same time, because of the fleshly and worldly enjoyment, he was there under slavery. He was there under Satan as his Pharaoh. Satan was his Pharaoh. Under Pharaoh's what? Slavery. Under Pharaoh's bondage. Could you see this? At the same time, we were in Babel as well as in what? In Egypt. Before we were saved, we were like Abraham. Not Abraham, but Abraham in Babel, under the rebellion and the idolatry, right? At the same time, we were children of Israel in Egypt, enjoying the world things. You see, all the riches of Nile. Then we were under the slavery, right? And we were under the bondage. When we were called and redeemed, not only we got out of that rebellion, out of Babel, but we also what? Came out of Egypt. We did have an exodus. You know, the word exodus just means to go out. To go out is an exodus. So you can see, if we only have the line in Genesis of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, if we don't have the line in Exodus of the corporate Israel, I tell you, we could only see the story of our fall depicted by Babel. We could only see the rebellion. We could only see the idolatry. We cannot see the worldly enjoyment. We cannot see the unslavery and the bondage, right? So even to see our fall, we need these two lines. We need these two lines. So what? So we all have to say hallelujah. On the one hand, we are Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And on the other hand, we are just children of Israel. Now, I may ask you, young brothers, what's your name? You have to tell me, brother Lee, on one line, our names are Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, plus Joseph. And then, on the other hand, our name was Israel. Corporate, collective. So, don't think you are seeing something as a continuation of the spiritual experiences in Exodus. No, it is not a continuation of spiritual experience, but it is the experience of Christian life on another side. And I have to say, this side is more crucial. And this side is more practical. I tell you, whatever you saw in Genesis was somewhat abstract, vague. But whatever you can see in this book is no more abstract. It's solid. It's no more vague. It is substantial. Everything has been substantiated in this book. Even the leading, even the Lord's presence, it has been substantiated, and people can see the pillars, and people can see the glory descending and filling up the tabernacle. So everything here is solid. It's no more just something abstract, something vague. Now it's altogether solid, altogether touchable. Am I right? So this is the comparison between these two books. And this kind of station meeting night, we don't have that much time. If we do, I'd like surely to ask you to go back and get something prepared. Next time we will come, we'll give you some test. It's ready to go. But still, we have something more to say. I tell you, in Genesis, I do believe we all have seen a lot of pictures, right? We have seen Adam, Eve, they were a kind of good picture, right? Portraying Christ with his church. And we have seen the tree of life was a picture, and we have seen some other pictures. But I tell you, all the pictures in the book of Genesis were somewhat vague. And not that definite. But when you come to Exodus, you have to realize Exodus is altogether a cartoon book. Altogether, page after page, page after page. I tell you, this is really a picture book. Pharaoh pictures whom? Satan. Egypt pictures what? What kind of word? Not the adulterous word. Not the sinful word. The sinful word is pictured by Sodom. You have Babel picturing rebellion and idolatry. Then you have Sodom picturing a sinful world. Now you have the third aspect, right, of the world, that is Egypt. Egypt pictures what? Pictures a rich world full of production, just a Nile in Egypt produce a lot of cucumbers, garlics, leeks, onions. Don't forget these things. Right? All those things. We all know, my goodness, what a strong taste of the garlic. What a strong taste of the onions and leeks. all the northern Chinese, they couldn't live without the three things. If you take away leeks, onions, and garlics from the cooking of the northern Chinese, they would die. And don't think I'm joking, even up to a certain time, all the children of Israel, they remember, they complain, Moses, when we were there in Egypt, we were sitting there around the boiler, and we eat the garlics, leeks, onions. Now what we eat here, day by day, morning, lunch, and dinner, everything, nothing but manna. This is one kind of grocery. Manna, all the time, manna is everything. Besides manna, we have nothing. You see, we have a lot of enjoyment there in Egypt. Yet that rich enjoyment, what? I tell you, put us under the slavery, even the enslavery of Satan. We were under bondage. Am I right? So Egypt is a picture. When you read the book of Exodus, don't forget that you are seeing a picture. You are not reading. Just reading the letters is not adequate. You have to see a picture. Am I right? Then all the way, the Passover, my goodness, was a wonderful picture. Wonderful picture. I do believe we need 10 or 12 messages on the Passover, to see all the things. See, have you ever seen angels coming to smite? Oh, the first man. You see? Have you ever seen such a picture? In the whole Bible, there's not a second picture, but only one. In Exodus chapter 12. Okay, that night, the smiting angels, they came to kill, to smite all parts of the first man. What a picture, right? What a picture. And have you ever seen a picture of people under the blood? To have the safety. They had peace, they had rest, they had safety, and they have joy. And they had everything under the covering of the blood. Am I right? Such a picture. Passover was a picture. Then what? Then, Pharaoh took a train of army, right, to pursue the redeemed people. I tell you, that was a picture of Satan. Satan takes his host, his angelic host, the rebellion ones, to pursue you and me after we were redeemed. This is not just a story, I tell you. This is a picture, a television, what you have been, I tell you, it has been all to get televised. Televised, how many years? 3,500 years ago. Your experience of redemption was televised there. Now, when you come to the book of Exodus, you just, what? Sometimes people say, brother, do you have a TV? I say, why not? I have a better TV. Day and night, morning and evening, all the day, I've been watching TV. I have a better TV. And my TV doesn't need any kind of earthly electricity. Right? And I mean it. So when you come to this book, you have to realize this is your videotape. This is the videotape on TV of your redemption, your salvation. Oh, Pharaoh and his army and all the chariots, they pursue after the children of Israel into the Red Sea. And then the Red Sea opened. And it became a dry land. And you and me marched through triumphantly. Have you ever seen this TV? You have to see this. This is a picture. This is not just a story. This whole book is a book of picture. Every bit is a picture. I tell you, I don't have the time tonight. Later on, we surely will have time. I don't care whether this life study on Exodus will last 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. I don't care. Anyhow, we will have a sweet and thorough study of this book. But anyhow, I just tell you a little bit to give you a kind of appetizer. You know, when God came to call Moses, firstly, God gave him a vision. What a vision? A bush that was burning, but not burned out. A bush was burning. It was burning, but was not burned out. What does that mean? Sure, that means a lot. That is a picture. Then God made a deal with him, and he could not avoid God's calling. And then he said, God, give me some signs that I can use the signs to, subdue the children of Israel that I've been called by you and so forth. Okay, God said, what do you have? You have what? A rod. A rod. God said, throw that to the earth. It became a serpent. And God said, take it again, but not at the head, but at the end, at the tail. At the tail of the serpent. Then the serpent became a rod. And then another sign. Moses was not satisfied with just one sign. God said, okay, you just put your hand into your bosom and touch your bosom. I always told people, by touching there, Moses said, maybe he will get a great treasure. The biggest diamond on the whole earth. Then he took out his hand. What? Leprosy. Woo! Instead of treasure, instead of diamond, leprosy. What is this? Then he still was not satisfied. Then said, okay, another sign. Just deal with the water. The water of the Nile in Egypt. All the waters in Egypt became what? Blood. What do all the signs mean? I tell you in brief, I tell you, the bush means ourselves, our natural man. God calls us, right, but he would never use our natural man. And the rod indicates what? Indicate whatever we rely upon is the devil. It's the serpent. If you rely upon, I say with a small voice, if you rely upon your husband is a devil. If you rely upon, you lean upon your wife is not a pretty wife. He is a serpent. And your scholarship, your doctorate degree, master's degree, whatever you rely upon. If you rely upon your bank account, savings account, checking account, 3 months or 6 months, all those, I tell you, reliances are serpents. If you will drop that, we'll come back, right? You know. But tonight, I just give you an appetizer. If you will drop that, oh, that is not the rod, but the serpent. But God would not ask you to drop forever. You have to take back. take back in a vice versa way.
Right.
Take the tail. You know, if you have the experience, all the snakes are afraid of this one thing. You take the tail, the snake became nothing. Becomes nothing. Take the tail of your husband. Take the tail of your wife. And to take the tail of your master degree. Some are here, I don't know, you got the PhD. Take the tail of your PhD. And take the tail of your bank account. Some kind of good. Anyhow, this is the devil. Then what leprosy on the hand? That is flesh. With me, that is in my flesh. Nothing goes indoors. Don't touch yourself. You touch. Especially in the night, in the deep night. You touch yourself, you will see what is within you. Nothing but leprosy. Your flesh is just embodiment of leprosy. And what is the enjoyment of the whole world? That is death. All the waters on this earth, you know, are nothing but death. I tell you, yourself, God would not use. Whatever you rely upon, that is Satan. And your flesh is just leprosy. And the enjoyment of the world is just death. I tell you, what a picture. Are you going to be called? Are you going to be sent one apostle, prophet, evangelist, shepherd, teachers? I tell you, you need to see all these vision and signs. I tell you, this is the book of Exodus. Exodus is a cartoon book. Then you see the Red Sea. How about the Red Sea? A picture. You see? All the children of Israel were baptized into Moses under what? Under the cloud and in the sea. Water and the cloud. And today we were baptized also under these two things. The baptismal water and the spirit and the cloud. There's a picture here. And then in the journey, in wilderness, you have manna, you have the rock, rent, right? With the water, living water flowing. All these are pictures. Then you go on to the tabernacle. Every bit, every part. Even today, I still consider I was somewhat bothered how much we will get on those pictures, those tabs. If we would get in detail, maybe it would take us 5 to 10 years to finish this one book. It's too much. It's all the pictures. You see, all the pictures. You just paint a picture that's easy to have a look. But for you to explain to me, it may take 3 days to tell me all the details. You see the point? I'm not a kind of threaten you, see, but I'm a kind of to encourage you, to induce you that you may have a full interest in this book. Well, how about our time? Our time's over. So anyhow, we better look. Now lie. In this outline, I give you 3 main things: the general sketch, the central thought, and the sections of the book. The general sketch is this. This book, firstly, shows us how the children of Israel were enslaved in Egypt. Of course, we will get on this. Then it shows us how they were redeemed, not only redeemed from God's condemnation, but also saved from the tyranny, the unsavory of the Egyptians. Then, after being redeemed and saved, how they were led by the Lord from Red Sea to Jordan River. It was 38 years. You may say also 40 years. A long journey with a long period. I don't believe on this earth whoever else were traveling in one journey for 7 or 8 years. I even doubt whoever has traveled for 38 months. If I doubt you have ever traveled for 36 weeks, even 38 days. But they were traveling, how long? 38 years. We Christians just take the Bible as granted. As granted, something granted. No. Exodus, we know the story. You know the story? Sorry to say, you know nothing. You know nothing. Right? Now, we have to change our concept. We have to say, Lord, I do not know anything of this book. Lord, open up this book to me. I like to see the things. What were happening there in those 38 years? What were happening? My, you can see all the things. All the things. How the pillar of cloud was there, how the pillar of the fire was there, how manna were rained, how the living water flew out of the cleft rock, and all the things, a lot of things, right? Then, while they were journeying, they were being led by the Lord, they had a station at Mount Sinai. And there, they received revelation. You see, the revelation of God's eternal purpose, to have a dwelling place on this earth. A revelation, not a small revelation, not a vision concerning yourself, but a vision concerning God's dwelling place among his people on this earth. This is too great a thing. We all need such a revelation. Am I right? Then eventually, following the revelation, they did a building work. Right? They built the tabernacle. In these days, we used to talk about the building up of the church. I tell you, sooner or later, we have to get on to see the real example of the building up of the church is the building of the tabernacle. I tell you, this is general sketch of this book. Actually, this book is not a book of Exodus, but this is a book of redemption, supply, and revelation plus building. It is a book of redemption, supply, revelation, and building. Exodus is good, but I tell you, it is too much on the negative side. When I came in the meeting tonight, I was listening to you singing. You see, you are singing a hymn on Exodus. Negative side. You see, next time I hope you will sing a hymn, a hymn on what? On the supply, or on the revelation, or on the building. Exodus is just initial negative point. After this negative, you have the passive supply, you have the passive revelation, and you have the passive building up. Am I right? Then the central sound. I mostly love this point. The central side is what? I tell you, every page of this book is Christ. Christ in this book is the redemption of God's people. Not only redemption, but also the rescue, the salvation of God's people, and also the supply of God's people. He was God's people, Passover, that means redemption. He was God's people, great salvation, saving them out of the hand of Pharaoh and the Egyptians, right? And he was the real supply. Am I right? He was, have you ever realized, he was the Red Sea. He was the Red Sea. I have to warn you to say this. You may argue, oh, brother, Red Sea doesn't signify Christ, but he's dead. I tell you, if you go into the New Testament, you could see when you were baptized into Christ, you were baptized into his death. So you see, his death and himself are just one. Don't try to argue with me. Okay, anyhow. Then you have the cloud of pillar of cloud, then a pillar of fire. Both are Christ. Christ today is the pillar of cloud, is the pillar of fire. And he is the man, you know this, and he's the rock, and he's also the flowing living water. He's everything. He's the supply of God's people. Am I right? And in one place, you have how many trees there, you know? At Elim, 70 trees, 12 springs, until all the 12 springs and all the 70 trees, everyone was Christ. When we get there, you will see the true soul. Right? Then Christ is also the means for us, God, to redeem people, to serve God and to worship God. Christ is the means. That is portrayed by the tabernacle with all the furniture. Yeah, it was through the tabernacle and the furniture that God redeemed people come to serve God and worship God. By these, God chosen people, we and God, all are built up together into one entity. And here we meet with God and God meets with us. And here we and God and we communicate. And we and God and we dwell mutually. This is all Christ. And eventually the whole tabernacle is Christ. And every furniture in that tabernacle is also Christ. Everything Christ. Christ, Christ, Christ. Everything Christ. Christ is our redemption. Christ is our salvation. Christ is our supply. Christ is the means in which we serve and God and worship God, in which we and God and we were built together, that God and we meet and we dwell mutually. Hallelujah. Until this is the central sound of the book. Then the sections. I don't like the word divisions. The book is never divided. But it is sectioned. See, the sections, you have 5 sections. The section of being a slave, the section of being redeemed and saved, the section of being led, and the section of receiving revelation, and the section of the building. These are the 5 sections. If you would take in the introductory word of tonight plus the outline, I tell you, it may be quite good. For you to get into this book, in a good sense, you have got the whole book already, but not that much in detail. So we need the following months to get into detail. Anyhow, we could still have 10 to 15 minutes for some kind of confirmation. Just feel free to testify.